¿Qué tal, amigos? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with another podcast this week, coming to you from Madrid again, joined by John. How are you, John?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Back from Tenerife.
Yes, I was better there.
I think everyone's better in the Canary Islands for some reason. I've never been. I'll put
Really?
that. Yeah, no, I've never been to the Canary Islands. No, I'm not really an island person. I haven't been to the Balearic Islands. I haven't been to the Canary Islands, but it's on the list of one of those places I want to go to. But everybody seems to say that life is better there.
Well, I mean, it depends what you do, job-wise. Now, I mean, it doesn't matter where you go. You've still got to work, haven't you, to make a living? So I think a lot depends on your jobs. But you know, when you've got free time, I mean, Mallorca, I just loved Mallorca. The place was absolutely fantastic. You're missing a trick there. You need to go have a look around Mallorca. And the Canary Islands, I don't like the Canary Islands quite as much as I do. Well, at least the ones I've been to, quite as much as I did Mallorca, but. It's nice. The temperature's beautiful. You cannot fault the temperature in Tenerife. It was really nice, but it's just not quite as picturesque in my liking of the the trees, the countryside and things. Yeah. It's more mountainous. It's not quite my taste.
Well, I suppose that's the thing is that a lot of the islands. I mean, like I said, I haven't been there, but you know, some of them are volcanic.
Tenerife's volcanic. Yeah, it's got tidy
volcanic.
On there.
That's right, and I think there's another one there that doesn't have a lot. I think Fuerteventura's fairly barren as well. It only rains 4 or 5 times a year.
Yeah, I mean it's down near Africa, so I mean you got to expect it to be sort of fairly different temperature-wise and weather-wise.
Well, that's it. I mean, if you look at on the map where they actually are, you wouldn't even think they were Spanish islands. Do you know what I mean? They're off the coast of Africa. That's it.
Yeah,
way out in the middle of nowhere. And but that's to be able to get that semi-tropical, I suppose, whatever it is there. I don't know whether it's tropical or whether it's semi-tropical, but you can get that good weather all year round, and it's the.
Well, yeah. I mean, the reason I went to Tenerife was to visit my parents. They go over there.
They were getting some sun.
Yeah, they go. I mean, my mum sort of suffers a bit when it got to extreme weather, whether it's really cold or really hot. Yeah. So having a nice. Sort of set temperature that's pretty much around the 25 degrees mark every day is perfect for her. So they go over there and spend a few weeks there, and it just made a little bit of a difference. Instead of going home to England to visit them, I went to Tenerife instead and spent a few days with them there. It was nice.
Is retiring in the sun on their
no, I don't think
list?
So.
No,
I don't think so. I think they love our town too much to move away, and of course we've got all the family there and everything as well. So I think they'll stick to the UK, but they just enjoy going. They love Tenerife, and they've got a lot of friends there now as well. So,
oh, really?
So yeah,
they stay in the same resort.
They keep going back to the same place.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah. So I suppose it's not that far away. I don't know how long it takes. How long would it take by plane?
I think from UK, I think it's about 4 hours. More or less.
4 from the UK, and from here about 2.5. Is it?
2.5 flight time. They put 3 hours on the actual the airline, but it's about 2.5 hours.
You always need a little bit more when you're dealing with planes nowadays. Airports can be a bit of a nightmare, of course, as we all know. That's it. So, your parents enjoy the time down there, and, of course, you got a sunny break as well.
Yeah, it was very quiet.
There wasn't a lot of activity there?
No, they stay in an area which is really quiet. So it's every day you can go for a bit of a walk, go around the marina and see the boats and that around there, and then back to the apartment and stuff. And the complex where they've got the apartment has got like a lawn bowls area in the middle. There's a business run there, it's not just for the complex. It's like a sports club. But it's inside the complex, so my dad loves his lawn bowls. So
well, that's it. A lot of people in Commonwealth countries like lawn bowls.
Yep.
My grandfather was a big lawn bowler. Haven't really seen it here much.
I haven't seen it anywhere.
There's no grass.
I don't even know if it
There's
exists
no grass in Spain. It's probably
yeah.
one of the problems that you couldn't convince people.
Well, you could do up in the north. North would be probably a good place to play, actually. That's but right, I just don't think it's caught on over here. They've got their Batanka, and I think they're quite happy with that.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is. I mean, for anybody who doesn't know what lawn bowls is, if you're watching from the States or one of these places, I suppose it's similar to, what would you compare it to? It's
I don't know how you compare it. It's I mean,
it's sort of like,
it's kind of like what do you call it? Not shuffleboard. Oh, God, the one on ice.
I know one. So the one where you're trying to clean the ice.
Yeah. What's it called? My mind's gone blank.
I can't remember. Curling.
There you go. I suppose it's kind of like curling in one sense. You've got to you've really got to control the weight that you bowl the ball, but the ball's got bias on one side. So you've got to bowl it at an angle so it comes back into where the jack is. The jack's a small ball.
The white one.
And it's quite a distance as well. It must be a good sort of 30, maybe 40 metres length.
Don't know exactly how far it is, but there is a bit of skill involved.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean,
it's a very social activity.
Yeah, I mean, that's why my dad loves it, really. I mean, he enjoys the sport, and it's a lot of walking involved. I mean, you could be playing 40 ends, and if you've got 30, 40 metres walking each end and you're doing 30, 40 ends, when you're sort of 70 odd years old, that's a good bit of exercise. You've got to bend down and up against it. You're exercising your legs and muscles and your back a bit as well. So, I think it's a very good sport for older people, definitely. But it's got a bit of a following with younger people now as well.
Well, it has now, yeah. I know that in Australia they've tried to get the younger crowd into it because the bowling clubs have always been great for that social activity, as I said before. And they're able to offer, a good drinking. Because people like to drink, have a beer and play sport at the same time, and bowls is one of the ones that you can do that, So they're trying to get young people back into bowling because it was a sport that, as I said, my grandfather was a bowler, for example, so you associate it with older generations. But getting young people in, giving them a drink, and they can take the drink out onto the green, and they can, there's a special place for you to put your glass, and you can, you bowl, and have a drink, and away you go. So it's a social activity. But some of the bowling clubs in Australia are in prime locations.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, really, really good locations. Overlooking the coast and. There is a danger that some of them are going to disappear because, prime real estate, obviously, and older generations losing touch with the, with the younger generations, the sport, and, people don't see the need for it. It's not like cricket, for example, which is still quite popular. And
it's still popular, but there is a bit of a danger, really, with some of the cricket clubs as well.
Well, cricket's gone to 2020. I mean, cricket's experimenting with different formats now, like with 2020 and all of these things. You can like 2020, you can hate 2020. If you're a purist, nobody, a lot of purists don't like 2020 cricket, because it's a pure spectacle. But, bowl's trying to do the same thing, trying to get young people involved. And I suppose a lot of sports have to try to change,
I think you've got to adapt to the modern age. And I think one of the problems at the moment as well, especially in the UK, is the weather. The weather does end up forcing cancellations of matches and league games and
cricket
and things, and in cricket and bowls. So you've got to adapt to it. So if there's a social element to it as well, even though the game might be cancelled, you've still got a bar next door, and they might serve food and things. They do other things in the evening as well. So that's one of the things I say my dad likes is they've got a social club there. They've got a bar with it's a fairly decent sized bar as well, and they do sort of quiz nights there, and
it sounds like a type of sportsman's club.
And it's not. They've got to wear the right clothes when they go on the bowling green and everything else, and
it's like wearing your whites when you play.
Exactly, but when you go to the bar, you can go to the bar and you can have a drink and you can enjoy yourself and that afterwards. So they like that.
That's it. And there are bowling clubs in a lot of those expat communities, even in Spain. I think there's, if you go to, I don't know whether there's one in Benidorm, but I know in a lot of those places there are some bowling greens.
Yeah.
That's it. That is one of the things here, John, that there's not a lot of other sports. You take football out of the equation here, and there's not a lot of... Basketball. Basketball. I mean, you would think basketball would be more popular considering how urban a lot of the cities are,
Yeah, I mean, you don't see too many people playing basketball in the street, which is something that surprises me a lot because, I mean, the amount of kids that play basketball in Rivas is amazing. I take my daughter every week to her basketball matches. You've just got the whole sports complex completely full of people playing basketball. There's matches every weekend. They struggle to fit all the kids in. So I mean, it's really popular here, but I don't often see kids playing basketball in the street, which is something you'll see with football and other things. So that's a little bit surprising here. But I think, you've got take football away and basketball away, and what have you got left in Spain sports-wise?
There's a lot of
tennis.
There's a lot of sports that try to attract a market, here in Rivas we've got, I think there's American football, maybe there's softball and all of those things.
Everything pretty much, apart from cricket.
But they're real minorities, though,
Yeah, there's minority sports, and they're very popular in Rivas. I mean, they get a lot of use. The softball and the baseball, I mean, that's gone really well here, and the American football, I think, is quite popular. They've got rugby as well, so they've got everything here, but when you don't have these sort of sports televised in Spain, it's never going to really. Well, see,
this is the point
popular.
That you can't get past that football domination. So everything here just evolves around football. It's football. Even in there's no. I mean, the thing that we have, and I know you guys got in the UK as well, that you've got your winter sports and your summer sports.
Yeah.
Your football nowadays probably crosses over into a little bit of both, because the seasons, seem to become longer and longer all the time. And then you've got your World Cup or your Euro Cup or whatever. But you did have your cricket season started, and then you had your football season. Then there was other sports that you would associate with one or the other. But and television gave a lot more. I mean, there is a national television station here that does dedicate time to different sports, but very difficult to get people.
Very football dominated, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I think back in the UK, you'll have tennis, athletics, football, rugby, cricket, all of these sports, a whole load of sports televised.
Lacrosse.
Netball now is televised.
Netball,
quite popular.
Netball's huge in Australia.
Yeah, it's huge in England as well. I mean, the players are really pushing it now. They're getting televised matches all the time. They're becoming like stars for within the netball community as well. So it's actually quite big compared to what it used to be when I was younger. I mean, I think.
Well, my sister's always played netball.
Yeah. Well, I think my ex, her mum used to play netball all the time. Some of my friends used to play netball all the time. I actually ran 2 netball tournaments alongside my cricket tournament in La Manga a few years ago, and I introduced netball to La Manga, and now they have massive tournaments in La Manga now in netball. So it's got very popular. I think more so than what it used to be, but not just in the amount of people playing it, but in the fact that they've started televising it. There's more sponsorship involved in it now, and I think it's a really positive thing for sport. Yeah. And that's the thing, in the UK you've got a lot of sports that are televised, even snooker and things are televised on TV, whereas in Spain,
no, you would never get it.
You just don't get that.
You have to go to Eurosport.
Yeah.
You have to go to Eurosport to watch the World Snooker Championships. Which I don't know whether it was the world one. I think there was one tournament on the other day. But a lot of Chinese I noticed playing.
Chinese loved snooker.
Playing snooker nowadays. Yeah, it's a great. I don't know whether it's a sport or not, but it's a great game. Yeah. Let's say. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no physical activity involved in snooker. I don't think, but mental activity involved. That's it.
Stand up, sit down on the chair all the time. Yeah.
Now, on the last video, we got a lot of comments on the last video podcast that we did. John, I saw that you replied to quite a few, and there were quite a few threaded comments going on there.
I tried to answer as many as I could. I'm really busy at the moment with classes, so it sometimes takes me a while to answer back.
Not easy to get around. But the point, we do go through the comments, so we do see what's going on. One comment here from John Lightfoot. He says that he's thinking of buying a house, and all of the houses, because we spoke last week about people having security bars on the doors and on the windows, and he thought it was more of an insurance rather than a direct threat, and that probably is the case as well. I don't know whether they ask you for bars on the windows for security purposes or an alarm. I'm not 100% sure if you get a discount if you have an alarm, do you, on your insurance
The insurance
policy?
companies may well ask you if you've got bars on your windows, if you've got a garage, and if you've got security fence and or alarm.
Okay, so the premium might be a bit cheaper if you've got those deterrents, let's say. And he also said that apart from the sun, it's hard to describe the reasons. He seems to think that the Spanish put themselves, friends and family first, whereas in the UK, life is based on prosperity and the race to the top, working in central London. Now, that comment there about whether people put themselves first, it does seem to happen a little bit more here. I know that families are quite tight still. Friends, a lot of friendship groups last for a long time, you know. Kids, make friends at school, and some of those friendships go their whole life, you know, at least more than in my particular case, for example. But I think in a city like Madrid, it is a bit of a race to the top as well.
But I mean, I think there may be a case for what John's saying. They are more family orientated in Spain, but I think it's definitely it's a city thing. It really is. You compare London and people I know who live in London and how their lives have progressed, their careers and everything, and you compare that to my town. It's a very different kettle of fish. My town is very family orientated. I remember I used to go down the street with my gran when I was younger, and I said to my gran once, I said, you're like a policeman. She goes, what do you mean like a policeman? I said, like, hello, 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 all the way down the street. I said, you don't stop saying hello as you go down the street.
Well, that's why I said,
that's what it was.
Well, one of the things you said was it takes you 30 minutes to buy a loaf of bread because you stop and you talk to everybody.
But even people you don't necessarily know, that someone will say, it's some sort of comment on something, and then all of a sudden you'll just start chatting away. In the shops or on the street, and that's a typical thing in my town. But I say it's a small town, 5,000-10,000 people, depending on what you include in the town, and it's very different to a big city. And I think that's the case in Madrid. Not really comparable Rivas to my town, but even in Rivas, you tend to be able to talk more to people around Rivas than you would do in the centre of Madrid. So I think it's definitely a big city thing.
Well, in the cities, everyone's in a hurry. You know, I think that's just the characteristic of any city nowadays. Over 2 million people or whatever number you want to put on it, but people. It used to be more. I saw a comment that said people, speak on the metro more frequently, and that's dying out as well. Because
in
of
Madrid. I can't remember the last time anyone spoke to me on the metro in Madrid, and I'm quite a chatty person.
Because of the mobiles and everybody.
Yeah, I think that's changed everything. I can't remember that many people talking on the metro. When I first started using it back in 2001, to be honest.
The difference that I saw was that people weren't afraid to have a conversation on the metro. Whereas in Australia, Perth, I won't say Australia, I was saying Perth, you'd take the train into the city and even people that knew each other weren't having conversations. Do you know what I mean? Because you don't want people to hear what you're saying. I think that's one of the main reasons. I think that also happens, and people that are having conversations do it, quite quietly, Whereas here, people will just shout out everything, and they don't care what you hear.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, in Spain, the
general,
Spanish language in general, and the way that the Spanish speak is quite loud. I remember when I first came to Spain, I actually thought my friends and family were arguing all the time. I was like, why do you keep arguing? We're not arguing. I was like, but you're shouting at each other. No, we're just talking. And it's just what you're used to in your own language, and then you don't understand another language and you hear them talking. They do speak louder than what you're used to, or maybe more of an aggressive way. I don't know how to describe it really. But it's not the case. It's just the way it's done.
It sounds a little bit aggressive if you're not used to it.
Exactly. Or if you don't understand the language. If you understand the language and you can speak the language, it's not aggressive at all.
Well, that's it. Yeah. So I think that's one of the differences there in that. Also, I think that people generally, I don't know whether it's changed, but people generally tend to be a lot politer in public, in the sense that they, for example, as I said before, in Perth, you'll be sitting there with your mum and you won't be shouting, you won't be having a loud conversation with somebody. It'll be like, oh, did you see what happened? You'd whisper it.
Yeah.
Whereas here, nobody whispers something unless they don't want the person to hear that they're talking about them or something, I suppose. Yeah. But, they'll have an open conversation about anything.
Yeah.
And you switch
back
in
home,
or switch off.
You'd have a conversation on the train or on the bus, for example, back in my town, but you'd speak quieter because you're in a group, a train, a carriage of people.
Well, that's it.
You respect other people's.
That's the point I was trying to make. Yeah, you try to not be
Disturb
rude.
people,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. But,
Whereas here, people don't really care.
yeah, I mean, I think if you go on the train, I mean, from my experience, if you go on the train in Spain, people tend to speak quite quietly in the train, at least on the long distance ones.
trains,
Yeah. So I mean, everyone respects people's privacy and also the right to a relaxing journey. Buses and metro, probably not so much because people aren't really having a relaxing trip anyway. So I don't think it really. It's not just a case of they don't care. I think it doesn't really matter on the metro and things if people are talking loud anyway. So I don't think anyone really worries about it.
And we have spoken about it before, but people are loud when they have those conversations. And the point that you said there, that if you don't really understand what's going on, you could think that somebody is having an argument, but a lot of the times they're not.
Yeah, if you look at the facial expressions, you'll probably pick it up better. But
yeah, but I mean, if you just go on the
tone of voice,
the noise level, you would think that something is going on some of the times. That's right. But more often than not, it isn't. So that's it. So that was his point there. They care about the important things in life. Yeah, probably, some things are more important than others. They have different priorities. Food and eating times are a priority here, even during the week. The lunchtime is sacred for a lot of people,
Very much.
Like to sit down, they don't like to have a sandwich sitting at their desk, which is probably a bad habit that's crept into other countries around the world. But here, lunch is still a fairly sacred event.
Yeah, I think in my point of view with regards to lunches, I think we're very much in two extremes. Back in the UK, your employer could expect you to work through lunch sometimes and have a sandwich at the desk because you've got a lot of work on or something else. Whereas in Spain, that's not expected at all, really, not in my experience anyway. And you've got a lot of places 2 hours for lunch. It was just, it's ridiculous. But I think that's a break at lunchtime is probably necessary, and it helps your working mind afterwards. You relax your mind a bit, you have a little bit of a break, and you can carry on working afterwards, and you're probably a lot more productive. But I think they're both too far in the extremes. I think in the UK you could probably do a bit more of a break, and in Spain you could probably do less than 2 hours break. I think it's not necessary to have that big a break. And a lot of people agree they don't want to go home for 2.5 hours, 2 hours for lunch. They'd rather have an hour for lunch, have something to eat, and then get back to work and then go home earlier. A lot of my friends have always complained about that.
Yeah, that'll be the case. So I have to try to find something in the middle. That's right.
Yeah.
But the whole restaurant scene here at lunchtime, there's even a city like Madrid at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's a lot quieter than it is at any other time of the day when people are having that lunch. Now, another comment here from a bloke called Chris. He says the main point here is work. If you don't earn money in Spain, you'll starve. The unemployment system is based on what you pay and is hard to get. Well, that's true. Unemployment here is not something that you can have access to if you haven't put into the system.
No, you have to put in to get out. Yeah.
Now, I don't know what the situation is like in the UK these days. I don't know even what it's like in Australia, but I remember when I was a young chap, you could go directly onto unemployment benefits without having worked.
You can actually leave school. Well, unless something's changed drastically in the last few years, from what I understand back in the UK, if you leave school and you haven't got a job when you leave school, you can actually sign on the dole, which we call it back home, straight away. It's not a massive amount of money.
No, but it's enough to cover your expenses, and maybe you can even live away from home.
Actually. I think to be able to live properly, you'd have to apply for other benefits as well, income support or something as well. Because I think the basic unemployment benefit, if I remember rightly, it's probably only about £70-80 a week or something. So it's not a great deal of money. It was a big surprise for me when I signed on for the dole, the paro here in Spain for the very first time, and what they were going to give me, I was like, blimey. So,
that because
a lot more money than I was ever expecting.
Because you'd put in.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'd been working for 14 years when I first signed on. I was when I got made redundant, and then because I got offered a position as a teaching assistant, it wasn't a proper job, wasn't a full-time job, and I was able to do both things at the same time, so I could basically study and have an experience in teaching before I actually become self-employed and full-time. And I like the system. I think it's really good. You've got to put in to get out. The more you put in, the more you can get out as well. There is a limit, but basically
2 years or something, is it?
There's a 2-year limit on how the time, but there's also a limit on obviously how much you get as well. And it depended on what you earned previously and what you put into the system previously. It depends on what you can get out.
So it all depends on your contributions to the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. You put in, you get out. That's it. There's no benefits if you haven't been working previously, which is probably what Chris means here. That don't come to Spain and expect to get the dole.
Yeah, no, exactly. And to be honest, I wish they'd do that in the UK.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, obviously
too many people taking advantage of the system.
Oh, definitely. I mean, obviously, I think a system like the one in Spain probably helps the more genuine people as a whole. Because if you want to work and you work, and then you have the bad luck of becoming unemployed, you've put into the system, you can get out of it. So you go and claim the unemployment benefit while you're looking for another job. But the amount you get is greater than what you would do in the UK in that case. But in the UK, you get the money straight away. It's less money, but you get it basically for as long as you want, really. I think there's some stipulations. You have to go for job interviews and stuff like that in that time. But, I mean, there's no...
Well, they were talking about that in Australia too, work for the dole schemes and all of these things. And I remember even back in my day there, you had to go to 3 job interviews a month or something. So they put stipulations on. Yeah.
It's pretty much the same.
It wasn't as easy as it was back in the in the 80s or whenever it was at its easiest. But here it is a bit different. So keep that in mind. But if you are working on contract, as you said, you were working 14 years, did you say?
I think when I first claimed the dole, more than that actually. It was 17 years when I first... I'd been working here 16, 17 years before I actually claimed the dole.
So you've been putting into the system for 16 years. Yeah. Able to get the dole for 2 maximum.
Yeah, it's 2 maximum. But I think if you work, I don't know how many months it is, but if you work for a set period of time, it might be 3 years or 4 years or something, you're then able to get the maximum of 2 years. And the amount you get given as, in the dole money depends on how much you were getting paid from your previous job. Yeah. So if you were... if you were earning €1,000 a month, then maybe you'd get €700 dole money per month. It's a percentage of what you were earning. But if you're earning €3,000 a month, you don't get €3,000. I think there's a maximum of like 1,200.
It's like with the pension.
1,300. Yeah.
It's like with the pension. I mean, the pension, it all depends how much you put in. Yeah. So if you're earning €20,000 a month, you're not going to get that when you're retired. There's a maximum. You know what I mean? So there's like a minimum and a maximum amount that you can get and you can claim. So that's it. And I think there was also something when the crisis first hit, if I remember correctly, because there were a lot of people here from South America. A lot of people had come to Spain to work and subsequently lost their jobs. Of course, the government. To encourage them to leave, they were giving like lump sums. So instead of you getting your 2 years worth of monthly payments, the government would say, look, if you go back to your country of origin, we'll give you €10,000 lump sum.
I mean, I know you can get a lump sum on the dole, something that, again, you can't get in the UK either. It's something I'd looked at as an option.
To start a business.
But I didn't know you could do it. I didn't know they'd done it to
encourage
people to go home.
Yeah, they did it. That was the thing, because so many people came, mainly from South American countries, and I think a way to get people to go home rather than have to stay here and be unemployed for turned out to be a long time. A lot of people are long-term unemployed, 3-4 years, even longer sometimes. Some of the cases, So instead of hanging around here, not being able to work in a foreign country, well, here's your lump sum. Taking and go home. Come back when the economy gets better, which is probably what happened, and a lot of people are starting to come back now, so they can smell that the economy is getting better.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, but the idea of having a lump sum in the dole is actually I mean, I was looking at it because I wanted to set up my business teaching, but because I had this opportunity to get some experience teaching for a couple of years before actually starting my own business, and I was able to do it while being paid the dole. It was actually more beneficial for me to do that, I think, than getting the lump sum, because at the end of the day I didn't really need a massive amount of money to start up the business. I just needed to buy a new laptop and a few things to create material and stuff. But
printer.
Yeah, but I think someone opening up a different type of business, maybe, it's a really good option. So,
well, a lot of people did. A lot of people did. I remember there a few years ago when these electronic cigarettes or vapors or whatever they're called became popular. They popped up all over the place. People were putting their dole money, that lump sum, into those businesses. Well, it turned out to be a bad decision because I think they were also prohibited. But you do see a lot of money going into certain types of thing. I mean, everybody wants to try and start a business. I mean, if you can't get a normal job, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Try and start something, right? So that's it. Now, we've got another comment here from Francisco, who is in Washington, D.C. He says, do we need a car in Madrid? Now, I saw that you answered this question, and really it depends. My personal opinion is that if you live in the center of Madrid, you do not need a car unless you want to go away on holidays. That would be the only reason.
If you live in the centre of Madrid, not only do you not need a car, it's probably better not to have one. Much a disadvantage to have one financially, because to get into the centre of Madrid, the type of car you need to be able to move around Madrid to park and everything else is a nightmare. So yeah, if you live in the centre of Madrid, I'd avoid it at all costs. You'd probably save a lot more money actually hiring a car to go on holiday for a couple of weeks than you would be keeping a car there just for holidays and trips like that.
Well, that's it. But surprisingly enough, even in the centre of Madrid, it's surprising how many people have a car.
Yeah.
See cars parked all over the place. And one thing I do notice, that when there's these parking restrictions in the centre, it's still not easy to park because of all of the residents' cars in the city, and people just leave them sitting there in the street until they use them. And people take unnecessary trips in cars in a city like Madrid. They cross, from one suburb to the next, where you can easily take a bus or the metro.
Or
walk, and they jump in their car. That's it. Yeah. So people are very car dependent in a city like Madrid, but you don't need one, in my opinion. In fact, I lived in the centre for 6 or maybe 7 years, and I did not have a car. It was not necessary at all.
The public transport in Madrid is fantastic. It's really good. It's cheap.
Goes everywhere.
It's reliable. It's efficient. I think
you have to put up with other people, but that's the public system, right?
Yeah, it's fine. But I mean, for the amount of money it costs, I mean, I don't know how much it is now. The abono transporte, the monthly.
I don't know, 65,
60,
maybe?
70 euros maybe for a whole month to use the buses, the trains, the metro, as much as you like. That's fantastic. Yeah. If you haven't got a car and you're travelling on the metro and that every day for work, I mean, you save yourself a fortune.
That's it, and you always get there on time.
Yeah,
that's the other key.
Obviously you have to plan your route and everything.
Well, of course, yeah.
I mean, from Rivas is a different story. Public transport is awful.
That's the key. So the reason we have cars is because we live in a suburb that doesn't have good public transport, and everything here is developed for the car. Yeah,
and it's not just it doesn't have good public transport for to go to Madrid, which it doesn't. It's really slow, inefficient. It's awful.
It gets you there.
It gets you there, but it takes a long time, and it's really, really slow. If we take a bus from where we live here, it takes you probably in between 25 and 35 minutes until the bus actually leaves Rivas before you go on the main road to go into Madrid. So it takes a long while.
That's because Rivas is so
long.
It's so long. Yeah. And there's lots of speed humps.
Yeah, and then and that's the problem. If you've got the public transport in a place like this which is such a long town as well, you can't get about to do things. I mean, if I didn't have a car where I am, I wouldn't be able to even take my kids to school. Yeah. And there isn't a bus that goes to either one of my kids' schools directly. You'd have to get 2 buses. So I mean, it's impossible to not have a car here and live comfortably.
They've developed this place here thinking about cars. I mean, that's obvious. But if you live in any one of the Spanish cities, as far as I know, they're all fairly similar in the sense that they're very concentrated. They normally have good public transport systems. Even if you go to a city like Cuenca, You can, there's buses there and they can take you around. You can walk everywhere as well. They're relatively flat. So you ride a bicycle if you want, so you don't really need private transport in a lot of these cities. But some of the coastal cities are a bit different. I know Malaga's quite, it's quite, spread out along the coast, and I don't know how the public transport system works down there. Maybe Barcelona, I think, has got quite good public transport system. Benidorm is very long as well, how it spreads along the coast, so maybe there's buses that go up and down, but I don't
really know Benidorm.
Don't think there's metro systems in those places. But do you need a car to live in Madrid?
No, not if you're in the middle of Madrid. No, in the centre, the capital.
You've got car sharing nowadays. There's a system called BlaBlaCar. Even if you want to go outside, if you want to go to the coast on holidays, you can get somebody to share a ride with BlaBlaCar.
Car to go as well.
Car to go around the city. As we said before, there's electronic. There's like these e-scooters all around the place now, and bikes. You don't need a car in Madrid. You don't need a car. People have cars because they just want to have a car, basically, I suppose. Gives them that little bit of extra personal freedom, which is what cars do, basically. And the last thing today, John, was an article which is in the press at the moment. Spain tops Italy as the world's healthiest nation. This is the world's healthiest nation.
Fantastic.
Spain. Fantastic, that's it. We're feeling healthy, we're feeling good.
Yeah, speak for yourself.
Mediterranean, well, hay fever is the killer at the moment. Mediterranean diet is the key, I think. Exercise, we spoke about this a few weeks ago as well. But would you, if walk out into the street now, John, have a look around, would you say we're living in the healthiest country in the world?
I wouldn't say it appears that way, I've got to admit. I was quite surprised, actually. Yeah, but then again, I don't know every other country, so you don't see extremely obese people walking around Spain as much as you would do in the UK. I would say that.
Has that got worse over the years there, or
in the UK? I think I don't know if it's got worse or not, but I certainly notice it more in the UK now than what I did when I was younger. But I'm not talking about people that are a bit overweight.
No, you're talking got a bit extreme obesity.
Extreme overweight.
Yeah.
So I have noticed there's more extreme obesity in the UK than what I remember when I was a kid.
Yeah, here very rarely do you see an extreme case of obesity.
Not really.
You might see people that are 5, 10, 15, 20 kilos overweight.
Yeah.
But you don't see the big 200 kilogram.
Not so much as you do in other countries I've been to. I've got to admit. So I think it's something that you notice when you go out in the UK. If you go out in the UK and you've been living in Spain, it's something you notice.
I will say, however, that my son plays futsal every week, and against some of the other teams, I do notice that according to where the team comes from, there is maybe 3 kids on a team of 10 that are quite heavy for their age.
There does seem to be more bulkier children now than what there used to be.
So I don't
know if it's just.
I don't know whether that's diet or not.
Yeah, it might be just because people talk about it more now that you notice it more. It might not be change. I wouldn't like to say, but I notice it more now because there's been reports on it and things on the TV about it, newspaper articles and that. So kind of notice it more now because it's been impregnated into my mind that this thing's happening, so you do sort of notice it a bit more. But
yeah, it is a little bit surprising. I'm not going to argue with the statistics, but Spanish people, you still see a lot of smoking going on here.
Yeah.
I don't see as many people doing exercise as I do in Australia. When I go back, everybody seems to be out and about there. People don't seem to smoke as much anymore there as well. Alcohol could be the problem, but alcohol here it's almost part of the day-to-day for a lot of people,
Yeah, I think here the way people drink alcohol here is a lot better for the health than what it is back in the UK. You sort of tend to drink more.
It's not binge
alcohol
drinking
in a shorter period of time back in the UK because of the opening times, because of working hours and things, I suppose.
Yeah.
Whereas in Spain it's more relaxed and over a longer period of time. It's not binge drinking most of the time. It's sort of social drinking. So you might drink on more occasions in Spain, maybe, but not as much. But I don't know. The sport, I definitely noticed that. But again, it's because there's a limited amount of sport that's available in at least in where we've been living. It's not as accessible as what it is back in my town.
No. So it must be the diet. It must be the olive oil.
Yeah.
And it must be the amount of fruit and veg that they have in their diet as well. I presume that must be the only reason. And the medical system as well.
Yeah, medical system's good. I mean, the UK, that people talk about how bad the food is in the UK. Spanish people always saying to me, "Oh, but your food in the UK is terrible." My mother-in-law always used to say that. She's never been to the UK, but she said, and if you sort of try to look at what for my family, you look at what my family used to eat every week. I don't think we didn't have a bad diet at all. In fact, we ate an awful lot of veg compared to here. A lot more vegetable.
Meat and 3 veg.
But we did eat a lot of meat. We didn't eat as much fish. The amount of fish that's available in my hometown compared to what's here is completely
amazing.
Different. We'd eat a lot. Maybe you'd have cod and chips,
fish and chips.
Yeah,
fish fingers.
Chips. But yeah, fish fingers and things. But I mean, we always used to have cod in parsley sauce, something like that, or mackerel, smoked mackerel used to be another thing we used to have quite often. So we probably eat fish probably once a week. But here, I mean, some people eat fish every single day.
Yep.
So that's very much. I think that's a big difference.
The choice of fish, that's it. I mean, you go to any supermarket or any fishmonger, there's, I don't know how many types of fish they have, but a lot more. A lot more. So that's probably the key. Now, we'll wrap it up there, John, because I know that you've got to head off.
Yep.
We're recording on we're recording on a different day today, so we're a bit out of whack from the podcast point of view, but we've got 43 minutes, so we're happy with that. So we'll start to say goodbye. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Remember, you can download the podcast now on all of the major podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. It's there. Watch the video here on YouTube. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and I'll see you next week. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Hasta luego.